Gallup, New Mexico. December 14, 1956. Our first case has remained unsolved for over 60 years. A mother's love for her children runs through their memory as they know she wouldn't have left them like this. Walsey Ray Downing, 32, and mother of 5, with a smile that would light up the room and adored her kids. Walsey would be going through a difficult time, but her kids knew she would be returning back to them. Walsey was reported missing in 1956. But her family believes her life was taken somewhere within the Grants, New Mexico area. Walsey also had a car that has never been recovered, which is a cream or tan 1952 or 1954 Ford. Walsey was allegedly involved in a relationship at the time, around her disappearance. It's important that we cover this case and attempt to get as many tips as we can that can lead us to the whereabouts of Walsey. Walsey is a Native American female. 5 feet 6 inches, 130 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. If you have any tips about Walsey and her whereabouts, please contact the Gallup Police Department. Santa Fe, New Mexico. September 1978. A hero's life was taken, a day before he was set to retire from the force. Work retaliation being the reason, but who are the suspects? Deputy Sheriff Juan Ortiz, 33, was on the job and was working the Santa Fe National Park area. He would receive a call to help some campers who were being bothered by some people. When he arrived to confront the suspects, one would point a rifle towards Deputy Ortiz. Deputy Ortiz would fire, hitting and killing the suspect. Deputy Ortiz would attempt to go about his life as normal as possible after this incident, but he would decide to retire soon. 3 weeks later, Deputy Ortiz would be off duty working on his ranch located in Rosciata, New Mexico near Maestas Canyon. 200 yards away, a suspect would be lurking in the shadows and shoot Deputy Ortiz with a rifle and taking his life. Deputy Ortiz was only 33, he was just doing his job, protecting the people, and the suspect or suspects responsible retaliated for that reason. If you have tips, please contact New Mexico State Police Cold Case Homicide Unit at 505-827-9066. Lincoln County, NM. November 15, 1984. A loving couple of ranchers' lives would be taken. 2 agencies, 2 district attorneys work on this case, but the grand jury serves no indictments, and wanted further evidence. Today the case remains cold. Police were called to the residence located in the southeastern rural area of Lincoln County. In the doorway of the kitchen they would find 2 people deceased from gunshot wounds. Our victims were Judy and Thomas McKnight. Judy and Thomas were a loving married couple who was also married on their ranch. Thomas, also known as Cotton, worked as a chairman of the Lincoln County Commission from 1978 to 1982. Autopsy would reveal that Cotton was shot first, receiving a gunshot wound to the chest and then another to his head. Judy would receive a gunshot to her back as she went to console her husband. The suspect or suspects would then shoot the couple again, execution style. Detectives at the scene remember that it was extremely clean with no forced entry. They believe the couple may have knew the suspect or suspects, or at least felt a bit comfortable inviting them inside. Nothing was taken from the crime scene. Authorities would trace the steps of the McKnights. Cotton was working on the ranch at the sheep pasture. He would come in for a beer. Judy was running errands. She would head to the bank located in Ruidoso, stop by one of her favorite bars called the Hollywood Lounge, and then head home. The murders would happen a short time after. Detectives would begin working this case, but ownership of the handling of the case would play a factor. Besides the lack of concrete evidence, the strain between the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department and the New Mexico State Police would allegedly interfere with the case. But the drama in the courtroom would not end, as the disputes would begin between the sheriff and the district attorneys. This which would lead to a gag order being brought on both sides. According to the Albuquerque Journal, the case would then be taken to the Supreme Court where they would vote to remove the New Mexico State Police from the case. The sheriff noted the rumors within the area, pointing at suspect or suspects and the crime scene, unable to confirm if it was one or two weapons being used. There was also evidence that was used in order to throw off investigators. Placing more liquor bottles in the kitchen, cleaned glasses, and a brand the McKnights were not known to drink. The sheriff at the time also reported he interviewed multiple suspects, and also used hypnosis, which was used for forensic investigations at the time. Stating that, unless an eyewitness or a valid suspect makes statements, this case is not going to be solved. This case is still an active investigation and authorities need tips and witnesses to come forward and speak on what they know. The McKnight family has dealt with this tragedy for over 40 years. Let's finally get them the justice they deserve. Any tips, please contact the New Mexico State Police Cold Case Homicide Unit. Lamy, New Mexico. August 15, 1984. 2 former roommates would go missing within days. Authorities in 2024 have reopened the case with hopes to find the culprit. Teal Pittington had a roommate that went by the name Tamara Britton. Tamara would go missing first. Days before she went missing, she would go shopping for clothes and make a big deposit from the bank. Her car, a 1977 Plymouth, was found at a truck stop in Santa Rosa. Inside the car was an empty bank bag and Pampers. Her car keys and a handwritten note that read, "Return to West Coast Sound, 3387, Cerrillos Road." Detectives would head to Tamara's trailer and find more Pampers inside, but there was no evidence that Tamara was pregnant or expecting. Detectives would also contact the father of Tamara Britton, but he would state that his daughter died at 4 months old. So, the woman known as Tamara was actually someone else, as she was using the identity of a deceased baby. Police got a tip that a woman was applying for a Social Security card in Minnesota, but did not have the funds to get it. A few days later, on August 15, 1984, Teal Pittington would go missing. Teal was a waitress and was also attending beauty school. She was going out to meet a friend, but she wouldn't make it. Police would trace Teal's steps, but 9 months later they would begin a homicide investigation. A decomposed body would be found a mile away from the New Mexico Girls Ranch in a culvert on US 285. Medical examiners would determine the body was a woman who had been actually assaulted and strangled with her own bra. The woman would be identified through dental records being Teal Pittington. Authorities in 2024 are currently working this case and searching for more evidence. If you have any tips about the disappearance of the woman going by Tamara Britton and the murder of Teal, please contact New Mexico State Police Cold Case Unit. Belen, New Mexico. September 21, 1985. A woman starting her life over on her best foot forward following a divorce would suddenly go missing. Jealousy? Foul play? These questions still linger with detectives, while they also wonder if the cases are linked to other missing and murdered women in the area. Deborah Lancel, 29, nurse, had a severe battle with cancer in her early teen years that led her to giving back in her career to others. Deborah, following her divorce, was just happy to be able to start over and have freedom for herself again. She loved her career in nursing that she took very seriously, and she also loved her dream car that she purchased, a rust-color 1978 Porsche. She was hanging out with her boyfriend, and would decide to head home to her apartment located on Horales Road, around 2 a.m., September 21, 1985. But when Deborah didn't arrive to work or get in contact with her family, she was reported missing. Police would head to Deborah's apartment, and find that her apartment door was open but there was nothing undisturbed inside. Deborah's car was missing, and would later be recovered in a different apartment complex, in Albuquerque at the time. Deborah's car was recovered by authorities and taken in for evidence. There are many theories of what could have happened to Deborah, but someone may have tips to help us find her. Please, if you have any tips, contact the Valencia County Sheriff's Department. A special friend can bring us those special feelings that leave us in the clouds. For one woman, after a trip with a special friend, she would be found afloat. Rio Grande, New Mexico. July 15, 1989. Janice Pulliam, 43, a mother and beloved teacher finishing up a battle with cancer 2 years prior, would get some free time and she would spend it on a trip with a special friend. Janice was divorced and she would meet this special friend. She wouldn't name the identity of this person, but she would tell her friends about how he would help her through her divorce, get a new job at the federal agency, and the two would take secret trips together. Janice was headed on a trip with a special friend. She would be last seen July 10, 1989 near noon. She was reported missing and 5 days later, her family would receive awful news. Janice's body would be found floating in the northern portion of the Elephant Butte Lake, which is 2 miles north of Rock House. Police would later find Janice's car in the hotel parking lot of the Hilton on July 20, 1989. Janice may have kept her special friend identity unknown, but she still had some reservations. She told her friend that if anything were to happen to her, the name of the special friend would be found in a letter in a gray suit pocket in her closet. Janice's body would be weighed down with a gas can and inside investigators would find 2 brown hairs. The person they wanted to speak with would leave town the day Janice was declared missing on his pickup truck with a boat attached. Time has passed and someone out there thinks they will be able to get away with murder in our community. We, the community, can come together and make sure this suspect is held accountable for the crime they have committed. If you have any information about this case, please contact the New Mexico State Police. At this time there have not been any suspects identified. Janice intended to have a good time with someone she considered special and she would lose her life. She planned to continue her career in education a month after her death, as her passion was within the kids. Janice is the special one, and we won't let her name be forgotten. Help us keep her story in the light. This suspect will have to serve the time for this crime, but until then justice awaits. By the minute. Las Cruces, New Mexico. February 23, 1991. A mother and son haven't been heard from in years. Today, we open our hearts and eyes to get closer to finding the pair. Edith Warner was a student at New Mexico State University, where she was an art major. She also lived on campus with her 2 sons and husband. Edith and her husband were having troubling moments that would lead to Edith wanting a divorce. Edith has a son from a previous marriage. One day at school, Edith told her professor that she would be back within a few hours as she was working on a project. But Edith never returned. The following day at school, her young son would also be absent. Edith's husband at the time would believe that the two ran off, as she had taken money from her bank account. A missing persons report would not be filed until March, as the police did not suspect foul play at the time. That wouldn't be until 2008, when neither Edith or her son's social security cards had been used. Edith's son was expected to visit his father over spring break, but he never arrived. Today, Edith and her son are still missing. If you have any tips, please contact the New Mexico State University Police Department. Socorro, New Mexico. March 29, 1997. A man would be found deceased, near a shrine of St. Jude. Authorities would begin working a puzzling homicide investigation. It would be around 9 a.m., when the New Mexico State Police were called to an area 5 miles west of Socorro on US 60. At the scene, police would find a deceased male found, with 15 gunshot wounds. Our victim, Peter Lopez, 50. Peter would be last seen in the area, from around midnight to around 5 a.m. Detectives have only released these details, and at this time Peter's case is still unsolved. If you know Peter, or have any tips about this case, please contact New Mexico Cold Case Unit. Torrance County, New Mexico. A woman's unclothed body would be found off an interstate. The suspect has still not answered for this crime. A truck driver would stumble across a body off of Interstate 40 near Klein's Corner at mile marker 230. At the scene, they would find Michelle Nina Sanchez, 19. Michelle would last be seen alive 2 days before she was found. There are very few details in regards to her case. This is where we need your help. Please contact the New Mexico Cold Case Unit. Cuesta, New Mexico. September 2, 1999. A man and his young daughter would be found murdered in their home. Investigators in 1999 had high hopes that this case would be solved quickly, but today, it remains unsolved. Earl Gonzalez and his young daughter Clarissa lived in a mountain hamlet home in Cuesta. Earl's girlfriend would head over to the home and stumble across a horrific scene, a double homicide. Inside the home, she found her boyfriend Earl had been shot in the head and his young daughter Clarissa was strangled. Authorities would head to the scene and begin collecting evidence. Unfortunately, there was very little available. Autopsy would reveal Earl was shot, which authorities believe was his very own gun, a .45 Ruger Blackhawk, which was missing from his home. His daughter would be found strangled with a cord by her bed. Earl worked as a contractor and was known as a nice man that left his door open for his friends. He had recently been a victim of theft as his car had been stolen. Investigators have no motive and Earl had no enemies, but the vicious person or people behind this double murder have never answered for their crimes. Anyone with information is encouraged to please contact the New Mexico State Police Cold Case Homicide Unit. Los Lunas, New Mexico. December 12, 2004. A mother would be left for dead and her case still leaves investigators puzzled. A woman would be found deceased, located off of Tome Hill in Los Lunas, New Mexico. That woman would be Elizabeth Gonzalez. Detectives would contact her friends to gain more details about her. Her friends remember her getting into a green car with a man that day. And she was never seen alive again. As time has passed, detectives are still gathering clues that can finally get us answers for Elizabeth. At the time that Elizabeth's life was taken, she was the mother of a young child, who today seeks answers and justice for her mom. Have tips? Please contact New Mexico Cold Case Unit. Silver City, New Mexico. October 31, 2010. A brother is missing and a sister is murdered, with one case remaining unsolved. Both cases leave their loved ones devastated. It would be the night of Halloween, and a young man would head out to go trick-or-treating. He would tell his grandparents about his plans, but they would not believe this would be the last time seeing their grandson. On November 3, 2010 a missing person report would be filed for David Ortiz, Jr., 18. David was supposed to meet up with a friend but he never arrived to their house. One witness remembered seeing David around 9 o'clock, in the 200 block of North Bullard. His family thinks that it is unlike David to run away. The day before his disappearance he would attend court over a custody battle of his child. David would win sole custody. David has not been seen since. He is described as a Hispanic male, 5 feet 0 inches 110 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Police are working this case with attempting multiple search warrants of residences. But this family would have another tragedy strike them years later. David has a sister named Nicole Marie Leon Ortiz. She would be outside with her infant when she was shot in the head. Luckily, we were able to get justice for Nicole. Her killer was convicted and charged with murder in 2012. But that does not bring them back to grow with their kids and loved ones who missed them dearly. If you have any tips about the disappearance of David Ortiz Jr. that went missing on Halloween in 2010, please contact Silver City Police Department. Tucumcari, New Mexico. January 20, 2004. A robbery would take the life of a mom who was trying to make a living. Joan Vance, 62, mother, would be working at a gift shop called the Sundowner Gallery and Gifts, located in Tucumcari. Inside, Joan would be found unconscious, and she would be immediately rushed to the hospital where she would be pronounced deceased. Early in the investigation, detectives were unsure if Joan may have fallen ill, but they would later find after consulting the medical examiner that something may have taken place at the gift shop. Detectives are keeping details close to themselves, and are looking for leads to get justice for Joan. Do you have any tips? Please contact the New Mexico Cold Case Unit. Albuquerque, New Mexico. January 19, 2009. The owner of a smoke shop would be found murdered, and used her last breath contacting authorities. Alicia Acosta, 46, owned a smoke shop business on Isleta Boulevard, SW. Two young males would enter the business. Alicia would have a brief conversation when suddenly, one of the young men would shoot Alicia in her chest. The men would flee the scene and Alicia would garner the strength to call 911. As she spoke with them, she would later succumb to her injuries from the gunshot wound. Police are unsure of the motive, but they continue to investigate who these two young males were and why they took Alicia's life. Detectives are working this case as an active investigation, and need tips from the community to get these suspects. We need someone with tips to be as strong as Alicia, and help get her the justice she deserves. Please contact the burnco.gov website and submit tips about this case. Luna County, New Mexico. February 1, 2004. A woman would meet her demise, as she was walking with Today, leaving her unidentified. It would be the busy 1st of February, when a woman would be struck by a vehicle. Unfortunately, she was found with no identification. Today she remains unidentified. The woman is described as white, between the ages of 20 to 60, 5 feet 3 inches, weighing 143 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Someone out here knows her. Your tip could help us identify our Jane Doe. Please submit tips to New Mexico Office of the Medical Investigator. Fruitland, New Mexico. January 22, 1991. Hikers would come across skeletal remains. We hope sharing more about this case we can connect to loved ones' unanswered questions. It would be near a dead-end canyon, where hikers would call police to come see what they have found. Police would arrive to a steep slope, a half-mile away from Pipeline Road. Medical examiners would come to the scene. An autopsy would reveal the remains belonged to a woman of Native American descent. She is described to be somewhere between 20 to 40 years of age. If you have any information about our Jane Doe's identity, please contact New Mexico Office of the Medical Investigator. Rural, New Mexico. May 27, 1999. A regular day for an electric company crew would leave them with nightmares. Team members from an electric company were out checking telephone lines when they would immediately contact police for what they saw. Police would arrive to an area in rural New Mexico. At the scene, police would find a deceased man chained to an electric pole, severely burned. The man would have chains around his neck with the padlock locking it together. There would also be a lighter found at the scene. Detectives did work the area and came up with a possible identification of Robert. Please help us get the identity of our John Doe so we can get one step closer to getting the horrible people who did this in custody. He is described as a white male, between the ages of 30 to 50, 5 feet 8 inches, with light brown hair and brown a gray beard. If you know the identity of our John Doe, please contact Luna County Sheriff's Office. This video was brought to you from By the Minute Crime News. Subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories.